This is episode 592. Well, it's the first week of January, and if you're like me, you have already swept away the holiday decor and turned the calendar page to 2023. It's time to shake off 2022 and dive into the new year with a fresh attitude and new commitment to shape our floral enterprises so they not only reflect our personal aesthetic, but also honor our values, personal mission, and the way we want to show up in this world. So I know you will be delighted to join my conversation today with Carolyn Kulb, Seattle-based floral designer and owner of Bloom Poet, a wedding and events design studio. Carolyn may be familiar to you for two reasons. First, she appeared as a guest of the Soul Flowers podcast back in December 2019. And second, Carolyn was a 2021 American Flowers Week botanical couture designer whose futuristic ombre-hellebore dress generated a major wow factor among the media and flower lovers alike. In the past year, Carolyn has put all of her focus into the design side of her business, rebranding as Bloom Poet. Carolyn helps couples dream big, embrace new ideas, and look to nature for inspiration. She also offers floral education and coaching to fellow florists and wedding pros. When I invited Carolyn to join me to talk about her focus on sustainable wedding florals, she also agreed to design for us on camera. So, part two of this show will feature a fun demo in which Carolyn creates a lovely hand-tied wedding bouquet with all locally grown and domestic flowers, using both fresh and dried ingredients. Let's jump right in and get started and join our conversation with Carolyn Kulb of Bloom Poet. I'll share our sponsor thank yous after the show. Welcome back to the Slow Flowers Show with Deborah Prinzing, and we're here in my dining room, which is sort of my fake studio, and my guest is Carolyn Kulb. Hello, Carolyn.
Hello, so good to be here.
I'm happy you came over and brought tons of flowers.
Yes.
And
always.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We're really excited today to talk about what Carolyn's doing and also get a bonus, a design demo in part two of this show. And thank you for that.
Of course.
It is January 5th, so we're working with what's available
yes.
locally.
Good caveat, yes.
But some of you may remember that I invited Carolyn to be a guest on the Slow Flowers podcast for our holiday special in December of 2019. Yes, we've forgotten everything that's happened since the start of 2020, but you were on and you talked about some of your musical evocations
Yes.
on the other side of your life, but your business was called Folk Art Flowers,
Yes.
and you have rebranded
Yes.
to Bloom Poet.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about that first, because that's like major. It's like
Yeah.
Changing your last name when you get married or something, which I didn't do, but
I didn't either.
Oh, okay.
Right on.
All right. So the business change is your identity.
It is, yeah. It was not an easy or flippant decision, I will say. But oh my God, what year was it? Time has no meaning anymore. But
I know, exactly.
At some point in the last couple of years.
Recently.
I really wanted to do more wedding work and really focus on weddings. And as Folk Art Flowers, I was also running a full flower farm, which was a lot of work. And I had a lot of changes that made it so that I couldn't farm any longer on that property.
Because you were leasing, right?
I was leasing the land, and then I had a bad injury, and it was just like really messy. So I was like, okay, let's focus on weddings. And I realized that without also having the growing piece, that Folk Art Flowers really wasn't conveying the sort of value or experience that we were bringing to our clients.
Mm-hmm. It's a cute name, and you operated for a number of years, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it worked really well for like all of the farm stuff and selling flowers to other people and
being
doing
a farmer
more
florist.
Yeah, doing the farmer florist thing and retail and all of that. But when it came to weddings, I really wanted to book people who were looking for a more elevated experience and a more experiential wedding where the florals are like a focal point. They're integral to the design. They're part of the whole aesthetic. And having that name and kind of all the associated like IP with that was just like not doing it. Like it just wasn't a good fit.
Yeah, Bloom Poet, it is literary and romantic and has this sort of sophistication to it. I really like it.
I love it, and I'm so glad you say that, because it's so hard in a vacuum to know, like, is this gonna land or is this cheesy?
Well, and there's so many kind of something and something. There's so many of those. So
the hipster era of business creation.
Yes, you were trying to be really intentional about finding a name that fit what you just described. Which, by the way, Carolyn emailed me kind of a bio that talks about her relationship with her couples, and I'll put that in our show notes, because you use words like mindfulness and thoughtfulness and culture and history and art and values, and so you kind of wrote a persona of what type of couple you want to work with.
100%, and all of that happened before I rebranded, because I really wanted to get clarity on who am I wanting to work with? Like, I don't want to, weddings are way too much work to do them for people that you don't love working for. So I wanted to get really clear and intentional about, like, these are the people that I want to attract and have. So I also had a fabulous branding designer who helped me. Her name is Pat at Fancy Girl Designs. I'm name dropping her because she's amazing.
Yeah, but she's here in Seattle.
No, she's actually in Singapore.
Oh,
randomly.
Wow.
But
Fancy Girl Designs.
Yeah.
Wow.
And she is the one who was like, Carolyn, I know you have everything set up with this existing name, but I just don't see it happening. And I was like, oh no, I know.
With folk art, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, so she kind of.
So she would kind of gave me the push, because I really didn't want to have to, like, just all the paperwork and all the, like, do a new Instagram, do a new website, file a new business license, all of that stuff you have to do.
And when was that time period? Was it during wedding season that you were trying to do it?
Oh, goodness, no.
Was it like last winter?
That was late. When did I rebrand? Oh my God.
It was in 2022.
It was in 2022. So this was like fall 2021 and like into early spring 2022.
Okay. So kind of in your period where you
kind of downtime where I could like say, okay, you're right. I'll listen to my gut on this and you.
Yeah.
And so
you knew she was right, but it was just were also thinking about all the work it was going to create.
But deep down I knew, like, she's right. I need to change this. And I'm so glad that I did, because it's gotten me like the best clients. Wow. Like, I love every single one of my clients. I have not done a wedding for somebody that I didn't just absolutely connect with and like love their vision and love their wedding. So
you also, I will mention this and people will see it on the show notes, but it seemed like you did some new identity branding photos of yourself as a florist that you wanted to align with Bloom Poet.
Yes. I did that last year, I think in April. So that was kind of on the tail end of all of the rebranding process where things were kind of falling into place. And I reached out to a colleague who's a wedding photographer here in Seattle. Her name is Janet Lynn Anderson. She's fantastic. And I love like everything she's ever shot. I'm just like, I love your work. Please shoot me.
Yeah.
So we collaborated on that shoot together for branding and, put together like this whole table scene of like flowers and like cute nails that would never happen in wedding season. Like,
your hair was
my hair was done. Like I look so cute, but it was a really great shoot because it had like all my brand colors and all of like the type of work that I love to create and like all of the delicate little spring things that are like my favorite until the next season. But
but you were also really relaxed because she felt a lot of trust and reciprocity with her.
Totally. Like that was one of my highlights from last year. She was just so amazing to work with. So
that turned out really well. When did you turn on Bloom Poet? How did you kind of launch?
I had a big list. So have a big list. If you're gonna do this.
You mean like an emailing list?
No, like a to-do list.
Oh, a to-do list. Okay. This is part of your coaching though. So we're gonna talk about that.
Get there.
Yeah.
But I just had a big to-do list. I think it was in April of 2022 where everything like went live. I relaunched, was like, everything's changing. I did tease it for like a few weeks beforehand just so people knew like something was coming. Because a piece of advice I got was like, you have to make people kind of care about your rebrand. Nobody really cares about your new website unless there's like a good reason.
You have to tell a story.
Yeah, and like make people interested, because otherwise it's just another pretty square on Instagram or whatever. So I switched over my Instagram. I turned up my like website stuff on. My contact form changed over.
Jeez, all those things.
I mean, it was a million things. And by then I had already done kind of all the back end like financials and paperwork and business licensing, all that stuff. But going like live on the internet was like a big learning curve for me.
Well, the reason I asked that, Carolyn, is that in April of 2022, I'm guessing you already had a lot of 22 weddings in the pipeline.
Yes, I did.
With people who booked you the year before.
Yeah.
So you kept them all happy, and hopefully you had already chosen that you liked them and you wanted to work with them.
Yes.
And then when you said that everybody you've worked with since, who's hired you under Bloom Poet, did they just find you through Instagram or referrals, or like how did you notice the response from people you were trying to book?
So that's a great point. So I actually told my couples before I told almost anyone else, because that's the kind of relationship I want, is like just absolute trust in people.
Yeah.
Because I want them to trust me to do their wedding well.
You want them to be invested in your success.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I trusted them with this like secret, right? I am rebranding, so when we do your wedding, you're gonna have a new florist, like
Cute, yeah.
And sent them. I mean, I literally sent them screenshots of like, this is what the new website is gonna look like. This is like whatever, and they were all so excited and on board, and just like, that's great. I can't wait to see it. Like all of that. So because I started in the fall of 2021 with all of this, when I was booking people in that season, I had all of that stuff in mind, even if it wasn't like fully done yet, of like, who am I working for? Who am I marketing to? Who am I trying to like book this year? What variables am I interested in here? And so that's how they all like ended up being such amazing fits, is because it was just so clear. I had so much clarity on that when I started that booking season.
This on-ramp that for months at a time, or before you turned on the name.
And I took my couples with me on that journey and was like, hey, look what I'm doing. And like,
that's cool.
Later you're going to have to, help me with reviews, because it's going to be a new business name, and I'm going to need all the help I can get.
Absolutely. Oh, that's so cool. So you talked about kind of reimagining the types of couples you want to work with and the elevated weddings. But what didn't seem to change to me is your values about sustainability and sourcing locally, because you did that under Folk Art Flowers too, right?
100%.
So that carried with you then?
Yes. Yeah. So my values are things to me that are like non-negotiables, and that there's really no point to me in being in business for yourself if you're not aligned with your own values. Like, why would you do a thing that you don't believe in?
Right. It's like that you might not be making the big bucks, but you should be able to make those decisions, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And like that autonomy is like part of what makes business ownership so fantastic, is that you get to be the boss and say like, no, we're not going to do this, or we are going to do this. And so having started as a flower farmer, I know how much hard work is going into every single one of these farms on the West Coast. Like
who you're sourcing from now, right? Yeah.
And a lot of them are my friends from farming days, where they've taken my landscape fabric or my drip tape. Like, they're my people too. And I am just really, really like strict and aligned with sourcing locally as much as I possibly can, and supporting local farms that, may not even have other wholesale outlets, but like they'll sell to me because we're friends, and they know that I will come pick up flowers or whatever.
Right. You're working with them, not treating them just as a vendor.
Right.
Yeah.
And, my couples actually love it, because some of the things that I come up with for them are things that are really based on my intimate knowledge of what's growing here locally at any given time. And combinations that other people may not think of, because they just don't know, like, all the crazy fun stuff that's available.
Right.
And so I just really love surprising people in that way, where they're like, whoa, what is this?
Right.
That's my favorite question.
It's not the dirty dozen obvious flowers. It's some of those are in there obviously, but others are quirky seed heads
Totally.
or vines or bulb
Yeah.
flowers that no one's grown.
Yeah. Or things that like I've never worked with, but now I have this opportunity to like get it into something.
Oh, because you're friends
exciting.
with the farmer and you've spotted it their
Yeah.
property or whatever.
Yeah. And I have a client that's like, oh, that's in their palette. Can I have it, please?
Oh,
You know,
I
like,
love it.
so my approach to that is super flexible. And my clients know that like nothing is guaranteed. Nature's in charge. But, you know, we're going to use things that are beautiful and local and also that are interesting, that people can comment on, that can make something more elevated than just your typical standard whatever is at a wholesaler.
Yeah. And it's going to be, these people want to have a distinctive wedding because that's the kind of lives they live anyway.
Yes.
With intentionality. I'm just guessing.
Yes, totally. My clients live life out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they also value sustainability, but that's not like the only thing they care about. They have these really amazing stories. Like I did a wedding last year that was like one of my favorites ever where they're mushroom hunters. And, you know, they had all this family coming to the Pacific Northwest who had never been here before, and they really wanted to show that off. And so we put mushrooms and moss and weird roots and like all sorts of just interesting earthy stuff and ferns and all this stuff in their florals. And people could not stop talking about it. Like I actually stayed at that wedding, behind the scenes, that whole night. And like I kept overhearing people like, oh my gosh, what is this? Can you believe this? Look at these mushrooms. Are these real? Like, you know, and I love that. Like that's art, right?
Yes.
Like that's the point of making art, is to get people's reactions,
yes.
genuine reactions.
Yes, I love it.
And that's my approach. So.
And then your other, I think, superpower is that you've figured out in your own methods to not ever use foam or any kind of chemical products. I mean, we keep hearing people say they don't know how to do a wedding without, or centerpieces without foam. Yeah. Not as many in the slow flowers community, but in the greater floral marketplace, you hear it.
It's such a standardized practice that when I started floristry, like I really thought you had to use foam. Mm-hmm. Like that's how pervasive it is in the wider sort of floral context. Mm-hmm. And
that's a good point.
You don't have to. We do all of our weddings without foam. Granted, it took several years of like experimenting, piecing things together, trying things, learning things, getting mentorship, you know, doing those things to learn it all.
Yes.
But now, like any situation, any piece a client wants, like I can confidently say, yep, we can do that. I know exactly how I'm going to do that.
Mm-hmm. What are those? Is it mainly like large centerpieces and elevated kind of arch installations?
I think that's where people get stuck a lot. Like wearables, no problem. Bouquets, you're not using foam usually. Cascading bouquets, sometimes people use those weird things. You don't need
Which
that.
I don't think are necessary.
You can do it without that for sure. But yeah, I think people get hung up on like the centerpieces because it's like faster to use foam, but I actually don't think it is because you have to like soak it and then cut it and like
tape it in.
Like
touch it.
It's actually more time. I mean, I've freelanced for a lot of people who use foam and had to like work with it, and I'm just like, this is not faster than chicken wire. Like it's not. And then the installation piece, like people just don't know how to switch from foam, or they have fears around like it's gonna wilt or it's not gonna hold up, or what if it's hot, or you know, that kind of stuff. And like it's so easy to do it without foam. Like there are so many methods, there's so many great tools, there are new things all the time that you could use. So there are so many alternatives. Like if people are stuck on it, I just encourage them to look at like what's out there, because you don't have to use foam.
Well, now you're going to make it easier for people who are stuck on it, because with Bloom Poet came in 2022, Carolyn Kulb came in 2023. You have a whole new platform now for, I'm assuming, like workshops and coaching and encouraging other florists, wedding event florists. Yeah. So that's sort of why I asked you to do this, to sit down with me today, is I wanted to share that with the community.
Yeah. So I for years people have been asking me these questions of like, well, how do you do this? Or I've had freelancers in who are like super skilled, but they're just like, oh my God, I've never seen this. How are you doing this? Like, teach me how to do this. And I realized that not everybody just knows this stuff. Like, we take it for granted when we're doing it all the time.
Right. And you know that because you necessarily didn't necessarily have it taught to you. You did a lot of trial and error and prototypes, and you kind of just
I mean, I did a lot of experimentation, but
so you
also
MacGyvered it, right?
Like finding people who are doing foam free stuff and being like, how do you do this? Like, I did a great workshop with Toby Nelson like several years ago.
I remember that.
Gosh, like 2017, 18, something like that.
Yeah, up on Whidbey Island.
Yeah, and that was amazing because it was like, oh, there are ways to do this without foam, and here's like, we made a bunch of stuff together, and it was awesome.
But then you adopted that into your own aesthetic,
yes,
and put your own twist on it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And there are methods like that I've just experimented with since then that now are like standbys in my business that like I don't know how I would do it without them, and it's not something that anyone taught me. It's just like, let's try it. What happens if we do this?
Yeah.
So, I'm launching a class next week on January 12th to just talk about every single foam-free method that we use, everything that's in my brain, like every method that we use for our big, fabulous weddings, and also like when to use things and when to not use things, because, you know, if it's 106 degrees like it was last summer, there are things that you might have to just tweak a little.
Or maybe product choices that you're making.
Totally,
right?
yeah. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it, but it's also like once you have just a toolbox of like, here's what you have to play with, it's so easy to just take and run with.
So under Carolyn Kulb, that's going to be your education and coaching channel of your business.
Yeah.
Okay. What other, I mean, I'm going from memory here. So you have been doing some one-on-one coaching.
Yeah.
So that kind of got this thing started?
Yeah. So I've been doing, like, people have asked me to do like design classes or like help them with material choices or like foam-free design or whatever. So I've been doing a lot of like just studio one-on-one stuff with people, which has been really fun and great. But because I keep getting questions about certain things, and because I keep seeing things that people are struggling with in like florist groups or whatever, I was just like, oh, this doesn't have to be that hard. Like, you shouldn't have to scrimp for every little bit of information so that you can like figure it out. And I feel like that's kind of the state of floral education in some ways right now. It's kind of like
topic by topic, not comprehensive.
Yeah, there are very few places where you can go and just get like everything you need to run with something. And I feel like there's also a lot of business process stuff that's like not sexy, but very integral to running a business that you love. Like, you know, it needs to be sustainable, and I mean that both like environmentally, but also for yourself, like for your own life, your needs. Like, there are so many wedding pros who have quit, who have been totally burnt out, who have had meltdowns or crises or whatever that they've had to like learn the hard way to, you know, structure their stuff differently, whether that's like a team or a freelance team, or, you know, their cash flow is all janky because you only make money half the year or whatever. Right. Like, there are so many of those things too that I just see people constantly like freaked out about. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be like that.
Okay, so you're going to have the kind of like the skills and mechanics part and sourcing probably. Yeah. But also if people just need business coaching.
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, my past life, I managed like multi-million-dollar projects across the globe with like global teams and stuff. Like, none of that knowledge went away.
Yeah, you're just translating that over
and
to
it's
this.
Like, oh yeah, like most people don't know how to manage a team of 8 people on site the day of a wedding. Like, that's not a thing that you just get taught at flower school or whatever.
No, you're right. That is so much more of a project management skill that could, you know, once you have those skills, as you're saying, it could translate to many different segments of the industry.
Totally. And I mean, every wedding is a project to manage. So like, what are your processes for that? Do you have that down? Because if you don't, you're going to have a bad time and it's going to be stressful.
And no wonder you're going to hate it.
Yeah, like you're going to have the wedding stress dreams because you don't have a risk mitigation plan. Like, but if you had a risk mitigation plan, like, you probably would not have wedding stress dreams, right? Like,
wow. So, and also earlier when you were talking about the checklist you had, when I thought you were talking about an email list, but the list,
Yeah.
I thought to myself, that list is somehow going to be part of a future workshop of like how to
Probably,
rebrand or
yeah.
something, right?
Yeah, if
Because you've
that's
done all the
something,
work.
if that's something people need and want, like I'm honestly here to serve other florists and wedding pros because, you know, I don't have an agenda other than I want everyone to succeed and not be quite so burnt out
Yeah.
and stressed out. Like it is super possible to have a wedding business that you love and that feels sustainable and easy and like delightful. And I just feel like that's not a lot of wedding pros experiences.
Wow. Wow. That just gave me a little shiver, like, let it be easy and enjoyable. And, you know, if you're not happy, Carolyn's going to help you figure out how to restructure so that you can jettison the things that you don't give you joy and maybe make money in the process.
Hopefully, let's hope so.
Yeah.
Because we all need to make money.
Well, also I feel like you haven't stated this, but I sense this just from your personality, and that is sharing your knowledge isn't going to create a whole new slew of competitors who are going to take business away from you. Like, there's enough business for everyone.
There is so much business. Like, the wedding industry, I don't remember the exact number, but it's like billions and billions of dollars in the US. Like, people are ready to spend money on their weddings. Y'all are not going to take my clients from me. Like, by learning the things that I know how to do in my business. Like there's so much business to go around. There's so much work to go around. And the truth is that I refer a lot of people out to other florists.
Just because of a conflict, or
yeah, I'm not available, or the budget doesn't work with what they want, or you know, there's some other like thing that there's a reason I can't do it. Maybe I'm on vacation. Maybe I don't want to work that week. Like you know. So having more competent, like amazing, talented people that I can refer to, or, you know, if someone comes to me and they're like, I'm getting married in Minnesota, do you know anybody? Like, I would love to have somebody to be like, actually, go to this person, you know. So it would just make everything better if there's more competition in air quotes, because there's so much work, there's so many referrals happening all the time. And we can all like learn from each other. There's no reason to not, like, there's no reason you can't have what's in my brain and take it and run with it with your business.
Well, this is a good time of year, at the start of the year, to be talking about this, because a lot of people got engaged over the holidays, and they're going to start shop in the Seattle Wedding Show is this week, I think.
Oh yeah, it is.
So they're going to start shopping around for florists. So do you typically get a lot of inquiries during first quarter?
Yes, definitely. I think people procrastinate when it comes to their florist a little bit. So I often get people who are like, oh my gosh, I realized I need a florist and it's like March. And I'm like, cool. Good luck, right?
But you're trying to shift that mindset, because you said you want people who put flowers first.
Yes.
So hopefully those folks start with the flowers and then go find the venue or something like that.
Well, you kind of see both. It's really funny. Like, I have people who were inquiring last year about 2024.
Wow.
And I'm just like, I'm not ready yet, but I will let you know when my book's open for that. And then you get the people who are like, I'm getting married in a month. Can you help me? And it's like, probably not.
It's the two extremes.
So, you know, it takes all kinds, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I really am intentional about like who I take on and what we're promising, and, you know, like what we can deliver, because I want every client to feel like they have an incredible experience with us.
Well, two questions that I know our viewers and listeners are thinking about that I'm going to ask you, and if you don't feel comfortable answering, you don't, totally fine, but roughly how many weddings in a year is appropriate or feels right to you? Or is it a mix, because some are like elopements and some are
I think it depends on like the business. Like if you're doing the smaller, like pick up your flowers from me, or like an elopement bouquet or whatever, then your numbers are going to be huge because you can cram more of those in. The way I have structured my business is that I only take on like a small number of events a year, and then I only take one wedding per weekend. So I'm not trying, actually I had one reschedule last year where I tried to do a doubleheader weekend and it was a nightmare, and I was like, never again, there's a new rule. Like I'm not doing that. So I only take one wedding per weekend. which means like my calendar is very limited, and then I only take like last year I took probably 15 events total, or six, somewhere in there, like 15 to 17, I'll say. I don't remember exactly, but every single one of those events was like full blown, like intense, like perfection required, like very high level work, full service work. And then I didn't do any elopements or any smaller weddings because I had to focus on these 15 projects,
Right. That's why you were giving referrals out.
Yeah, because if I'm only available for 15 weddings, I get a lot of referrals or a lot of inquiries. Like, there is no possible way with the current structure of my business that I would take on 150 clients a year.
Right.
And I don't want to.
Yeah, then you have a lot of mouths to feed too. You're keeping employees.
Totally.
So you have the guaranteed labor and.
Yeah. So it's just, it depends on your business and the structure. But
well, the other question is, do you have a minimum? And,
yes.
And what is your thought on, what are your thoughts on minimums?
I have a minimum. It actually went up right after Thanksgiving because I wanted to make sure in booking season people were working with realistic budgets. I'm sure everyone who's watching this knows this, but our flower costs at wholesale have gone up from anywhere from 50 to like 200% in the last couple years.
Wow.
Shipping,
crazy.
It's crazy.
Wow.
Shipping costs have doubled from places like Alaska and California. So if you want those peonies, like, you're going to pay the same amount in shipping as you would for the peonies themselves, which it's worth it. But
you have to factor that into your budget.
You have to factor that in, and that's before you touch them. That's before you touch them. Mm-hmm. It's before you buy a ribbon. It's before before you have a vase out.
Right.
So
just the raw materials.
Just the raw materials. So everybody has different philosophies about pricing and what you should charge and whatever. But my minimum now is $12,000.
Okay.
And that's a realistic budget for somebody who has like an average wedding in our region with the level of attention to detail and design vision and execution that we bring.
Yeah. It's really personalized.
It's so personalized. Yeah. They have a very personalized experience throughout the process. We are co-creators, we're co-collaborators in designing their weddings, so it's just a very different high-touch approach to weddings versus like, here are packages. Like, I don't do that.
Right. And that works for some people
totally,
for other reasons.
Totally.
Yeah.
But every single wedding I have looks very different, and that's on purpose, and it's because every single couple I work with is very different. Yeah. They have different stories, they have different vibes they have different like elements we want to bring in. They have different venues. So that's kind of my approach, is that like, that's the minimum required to do the level of work you want from me.
Yeah. And that's sort of back to being the business owner and making up the rules. You're comfortable with that rule, and if it doesn't work for somebody, no hard feelings, just like, I'll help you find somebody else.
Totally. Yeah. And my goal is to just help everybody the best I can. Yeah. So if somebody comes to me with a $5,000 budget in Seattle, my job is then, hey, just so you know, like, that budget is pretty unrealistic for what you want for full service, 150 guests, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
That's fine for a small backyard wedding.
Yeah, but you're going to have a real tough time finding somebody. So let me know if your budget is flexible, and then I can refer you. Mm-hmm. If not, like, I can't really do anything because I don't want to refer people who don't have budget to other friends. I
don't want to sabotage your friendships.
No. So that's how I handle that. Yeah. And if people are like, oh, I can't really afford you, or like, we have exactly your minimum as the budget, I'm like, okay, great. Here are the compromises you may have to make.
Yeah.
If that's cool, great. If not, like, I can refer you to someone else who might have a slightly lower minimum, and then they can help you. But
it's such a compliment, though, that people see it on your website. So hopefully they've done their homework before they.
Most people do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because you're making that kind of it's a way to self-select out.
Yeah. Oh, and you asked me earlier about where people are finding me.
Yeah.
And I didn't answer
that. That's
okay.
Okay.
I do get leads from Instagram, which is why I keep doing it, even though I don't love Instagram.
Yeah.
A lot of people find me on Google, and that's where I find sometimes they don't read everything before they inquire. Yeah. So I have to kind of tell them, like, hey, just so you know, here's what, we charge and whatever.
Yeah.
And then a lot of my best clients I get from referrals. So a lot of past clients refer, which is always amazing because sometimes I get to see my past clients at the wedding and like give them a hug, and maybe they're pregnant or
somebody attended a wedding that you did, and then 3 years later they're like, oh, I love those flowers.
So that's like the best. But also like other wedding pros, planners, venue owners, like people who like get couples kind of upstream before they are thinking about flowers necessarily. Give me a lot of referrals, and I always love that because it's like a known quantity. I know the people that I would be working with, and it's a lot easier to just say yes and make it happen.
Because you're right, because it might be the photographer, the relationship with the photographer, or a caterer or a venue. Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap up so we can get a little design demo in. So tell everyone what they need to know about what you're launching on January 12th, and we'll share all that information too.
Great. So you can go right now to carolynkulb.com, and if you go to like our offerings and classes and all of that stuff, there is one class available, which is the first class.
It's early in the year.
We're going to do a lot. So if there's something you don't see, email me and let me know. It's probably in the works. But this is all about sustainable wedding design. So every foam-free method that we use in our business to create these fabulous weddings, when to use what method so you're not like freaked out about not using foam, ways to reduce your waste, ways to package without plastic, single-use plastic, all of that stuff, ways to reuse things, like things you might not have considered, and also just like how this could help your business. And I do want to say, like, these new couples who are younger, they actually care about this stuff.
Right.
Even if you don't yet, like, they do.
And they may not know to ask for it, but if you tell them that's part of your brand,
that's attractive.
That's a sales point.
A different client who's like, oh, great, I'm looking for that. Mm-hmm. So there are people who are actively looking for this stuff. So that's my spiel. But the class is going to be a live training on January 12th at 2 p.m. Pacific. And then there's going to be a replay. So if you can't make it, no sweat. Like, we'll send you a replay and all of that. And you'll also have like a cheat sheet of like, here are all the ways you could do a compo. Here are all the ways you could do an installation. Like, here, like, it's right here, ready to go. Take it in your studio and start playing with it. Like,
yeah, that's great, because people learn in different ways. They can watch, but they need that PDF to refer to. How long will that be, the session?
It's about 90 minutes, I think. And then there's going to be half an hour for Q&A.
Okay.
So
bring your questions.
Yes, if you sign up and you can't make it, you can send in questions, and we will make sure that they get answered on the actual training. And if you don't join live or you don't buy it until after we do it, then you can't like send in your questions. Yeah. So that's the incentive to like go ahead and sign up early.
And it's really affordable. Is it $99?
It's $97.
Oh, $97. Okay.
Yeah. So I really don't want to be trying to sell people like a $2,000 class for something that's like a bite-sized, like, here's my brain dump.
Dive in, grab it. Yeah.
Take what you need, right? And if you already know some foam-free methods, but you're like, I've never heard of whatever, like Excelsior, great. Mm-hmm. Come to the class. Like, I guarantee that you're going to learn something new. If you don't learn something new, I will refund you 100%. Yeah. Like, but I really want it to be a bite-sized, actionable training that is completely practical and everything that you need to know, and doesn't have like a weird sales pitch at the end or like a weird giant class you have to buy to get it. Like, no.
Well, and you can put this knowledge to work in 24 hours. You can immediately start implementing it in your design business.
Yeah, and if you are feeling like it's too big of a leap for this wedding season, you have 4 months or whatever to test things and make sure I'm telling you the truth. Right?
Sounds great.
And take it and run with it. So
that's great. Thank you so much, Carolyn.
Thank you,
I'm really inspired by the way you're walking the talk of your own values, and also encouraging others to do the same. So, good. Well, let's set up the studio space with all your flowers and show everyone. Well, I guess we would call this a sustainable hand-tied bouquet, or a local, or I don't know.
Yeah. Everything is locally grown. Even though it's January, I did it. I want it out there. It's not impossible to source locally, but it's going to be a mix of dried and fresh, so it'll be really fun to put together.
Awesome. Okay, great. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Deborah.
That was great. Okay, I'm going to add the new video. Give me a second. Here we go. Well, Carolyn, part 2 of our conversation of Carolyn Kulb of Bloom Poet and Carolyn Kulb Consulting, I guess we'd call it.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying you'll do a little demo. And
Of course.
it is, as we said, it is early in January, the first week of January, and you did give yourself a challenge of sourcing as local as possible. So you're going to show us a hand tied.
Yes. So I just will run through what we have so you guys know. We've got pieris, we've got flowering cabbage, we've got some spray roses from California. We have this new friend I've never used. It's called Saxicola. Don't know. It's from California. It's beautiful. Cool. We've got some blue ice cypress. And then, you know, the usual suspects. We've got some greenhouse tulips, some hyacinths, some stock. And then we have a bunch of dried stuff you may not be able to see, but we're going to put dried in with all of our fresh too. And I'm going to start with this wild blue ice cypress. I like to start with the heaviest stems, whatever that means. So,
is this comparable to what you might do for a winter bridal bouquet, or
yeah?
Okay, wow.
I love to make my bridal bouquets like hand tied if possible. You know, just without a mechanic in the bouquet, because I find it easier to have more control.
Oh, you mean versus like a little ball of chicken wire or a hollow
or like vines or whatever.
Oh, okay.
But it really depends on what you're using. Like, if I had a really heavy set of stems, like for, I don't know, like if I had a bunch of protea or something that I wanted to put in, you like 100% need a mechanic for that.
Right, because they're just going to be top heavy.
They're just so heavy. And hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I feel like I have a lot of stuff.
I might pull a few of the vases out of the frame a little bit.
Yeah.
So we can see what you're doing.
Great.
People's seen what you've got now.
Yeah, I'm realizing that this is like all in the way.
Maybe that gives you a little bit more room there. How's that?
That's great.
That side isn't so bad.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Yeah, that's nice and opened up then.
Great. So yeah, the first thing I'm always thinking about is like what the shape of this should be. Right now it's kind of diagonal, if you notice, like I kind of look at each stem before I place it so that I kind of know like which way is it draping. Like this guy wants to go towards my left, so I'm gonna put him here, and then he kind of is filling out this little hole.
Following that line.
So that's how I think about stem placement in general. And then I'm gonna go in with my lines, which are these stock. And just kind of follow the same.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Thing.
That color is so pretty against the black.
It is such a good color. I love it.
That's from California then.
Yep.
Yeah. I know there's no easy hand-tied recipe, but in pricing for a bridal bouquet, do you have a rough number of stems that you calculate?
All of my stuff is really like luscious and like big and full, so I usually I have to rein myself in and say like, this can only have 50 stems. It cannot be like a massive monster like 60 stems or whatever.
Especially then you got this little like petite bride who can't even carry it.
Yeah, totally. So I really have to like remind myself that not everybody wants to carry like a 10-pound bouquet on their wedding day.
Well, they're gonna get lush. They're gonna get lush. It's just edited lush.
Yeah.
Oh,
definitely.
That looks great with the palette you've got.
Yeah, usually I have a mirror in front of me and not a camera, so I'm like, we'll see what this actually looks like in a minute, but
yeah, sorry about that.
No, this is great. I think I'm gonna go in with these guys because you see how gigantic their stems are, so I'm just gonna go ahead and get them in there because the smaller stuff is much easier to add at the end.
And that's just kind of like your mask. Oh, that looks great. Wow.
So I'm just gonna...
So what's the philosophy about, what's the current conventional wisdom about kale? Like, it was so...
I don't know. I mean, I think it's still kind of like retro, but I love a challenge, so I was like, I'm gonna make this really pretty.
You need it's funny to say, but it might be your focal flower.
It definitely is my focal flower because that's just what was available.
Right,
so
right.
I'm like, hey, look, this is the front of your bouquet or whatever.
It looks like a rose.
It looks like a rose, and
Did you reflex the stems or the petals on that one?
No, they just kind of got funky on their own. So we're just going with it. I'm gonna add in these hyacinths because these also have pretty big stems, and they're just chunky fellas.
Yeah, but they're gonna add some beautiful fragrance.
Oh gosh, they smell so good. I always wish we had like smell-o-vision with like anytime we're playing with flowers because it's just really good.
Oh, it's wonderful.
And then, oops, I'm just gonna add in some pieris down here because this hyacinth needs a little more support.
I was just gonna ask you about that. Is that going to help keep the hyacinths from flopping? Because their stems are a little bit fragile.
Yeah, what I normally would do, and I totally forgot because I got up early this morning. Normally I would actually cut the bottom and I would put like a bamboo stick in there so that it's like straight.
Really?
And then, yeah, you can do that with any stem that like crushes with pressure.
Okay. Do you want a couple bamboo sticks?
No, it's fine. This is just it's just a demo.
Yeah.
If this was for a client, I would take all of this apart, redo that, and do it again. But
I love that.
Yeah, like these stems are, they're like pretty hollow on the inside, and they're so soft that you can just kind of jam something in there.
But having that bamboo stake will give it just enough stability.
Yeah.
Interesting.
To be able to really work with.
Do you do it with tulips?
I don't usually with tulips, but I do with daffodils because boy, do they like to just get crushed under your hand or whatever.
Right, because that's a soft stem too.
Yeah, gosh, I can't. Last year I had a project that was like a ton of daffodils, and I just was like, what is happening? And so I finally was like, bamboo stakes.
You need to
gotta figure it out.
Right.
But everything you make is always sort of it's a puzzle to figure out, and that's kind of why I still love doing this because it's just really fun. Oh, we gotta get some dried fellas in here. So I'm gonna go over here. Let's see.
Oh my gosh, that's so pretty.
Okay, so here's what we've got so far. This is the side I've been looking at. Your side is a little sad. But I added some dried hydrangea and dried joe pye weed, and we also have some beautiful nigella that I'm gonna float over the top when we're closer.
Right. But on a bridal bouquet, it generally is a front.
People ask me that a lot, and the way I think about it is that my clients don't listen. Wedding days are crazy. So my clients are worried about like, is mom okay? Or where is my bridesmaid? Or did everyone get fed? Like they're not worried about, am I picking up my bouquet the right way? So my philosophy is like, if you want to have a front and a back, go for it. Your clients are probably not going to hold it the way you want in every photo. And you might be disappointed if you have a back that you don't love. Right. So my bouquets are beautiful from every single angle. They're beautiful from this side. They're beautiful, from the front. They're beautiful if it tilts. They're beautiful from the back. Not yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah.
So that's just my
You're just thinking of every possible angle that it's going to be held.
Yeah. And that's kind of the project manager brain too. Like, what could go wrong? Well, they could pick it up and not hold it the way you want. So, that's a thing to consider when you're building, because you don't want to have a disappointing set of photos back.
Such a good point. And I know some people put like pearl-headed pins in the ribbon wrap to help the bride know where to put her thumb. But as you said, in the heat of the moment, and there's emotions involved, and
it's kind of rare that it's gonna like get nailed every time. So it's just you control the things you can, and you accept the things that you definitely can't.
And not to bash photographers, but they're not thinking about having the bouquet be pivoted or something like that, or rotated.
Yeah, no. All right, so now I'm gonna kind of flip this guy over so you can see the prettier side. And I am going to cut these stems because they're stabbing me. And it's annoying.
Yeah,
so
you don't need it.
A lot more workable for me. So just gonna kind of do the same thing I did on the other side and just kind of add in where I feel like things are missing. And I am kind of trying to spiral things in the correct way, but it's not always possible.
It's almost like a modified spiral. The base is a spiral, and then you're layering on top of it.
Yeah, and I mean I do try to like construct it so that like my stems are gonna cross diagonally.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's
so
a good view.
It is like correct. But
so the holding point is going to be as small as possible.
Yeah. But it's not, especially with these beefy, bulky stems, sometimes it doesn't always work like that, so you just do your best. And then we're going to add more of these beautiful sprays. Looking here. So here I'm seeing this like big hole. If someone were to hold this bouquet from this side, there's like nothing there. So I'm actually putting like a pretty substantial flower there so that if someone holds it like this in a photo, you have
the
something
rose is facing
at.
out, yeah.
Yeah.
But you're following the line of the greenery.
Yes, always. So that's getting...
You're doing pretty good not having a mirror to look at.
I know. Thank you. I'm gonna grab some more dried stuff to add on the side.
So back to the point I was asking you about using dried.
Yes.
This is not going into water, obviously. I guess it is for transport, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
But the dried stems, they're pretty durable. They're not going to get soggy.
No, they're gonna be fine, especially for like, I mean, I don't know about retail because I don't really do retail stuff anymore, but for the length of a wedding, like mixing dried and fresh is totally fine. I've never had anyone have an issue with like things getting soggy or weird or anything like that.
Well, it really helps expand your palette, especially in the
definitely.
winter.
Like I don't know how I would have done this with just fresh today because
it wouldn't look so.
It wouldn't be as dimensional as I wanted.
And
it would
so
just
tactile.
Be, you know, what was there, and it would look like a florist cooler instead of a cohesive thing.
Well, the palette is really analogous too. I know you have those yellow tulips, and whether you use them
I haven't decided.
I'm not sure, but
yeah, not sure. I don't know. I bought them thinking I would be able to find more yellow, and then couldn't. So we might just go with a very like cool palette and call it a day.
So pretty, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna just add some more little textural bits. I think this is pretty close to being
it's gorgeous.
Finished.
It's just pretty.
Just add some of these nigella pods, which again I'm trying to add sort of diagonally.
Carolyn, when you deliver to weddings and setting up, do you how do you transport the bouquet?
I put it in a bouquet vase, so I always have like kind of a bigger vase that can hold a substantial bouquet, and then I try if I can I try to tie it with the ribbon on site instead of trying to transport a wet silk ribbon.
Good idea.
It's not the best, so yeah, I try to do that. And then
I've got some of these separated if you want. Yeah.
Deborah's helping me.
You've got your tape ready to go. So
yes, that's really key. Like I have this tape ready because otherwise, what are you doing? How can you do it? You have to set it down. It shifts. It's hard. But yeah, I put it in a bouquet vase, and then often I'll just put it in one of those like floral. What are they called? The little boxes that have the hole.
Yeah,
and then you just pop it in, and then yeah, I hand that whole thing off because often my couples want to take stuff home, and there's some like greenery that got a little wacky down here, so I'm just kind of fixing that
Editing.
before I tie this. But yeah, they that way they have like a way to take it home. They can put it on a floorboard and it's fine. It's not gonna go anywhere. So, and I'm just gonna tie this off. You can always untape it if you don't like something. It's very low pressure. Like, and stuff shifts. I usually tie mine upside down to try and keep them the way I had them.
Right.
And then I have this really long stem that just about took out a vase.
Poked your eye out. Oh, so pretty.
The other nice thing is that you can always sort of shift stuff around if you're not taping it super tight. So like, you know, if this feels too scrunched, I can just sort of move it out a bit, and then it's, you know,
give
a
it
little more multi-dimensional. But yeah, so I'm kind of just like moving stems in and out to get a shape that I am happy with on all the sides. So like this hydrangea is a little too far out there for my liking.
Oh yeah, it totally shifts when you want it to.
And then, you know, I would just like tape this again tighter for a client just to make sure that like nothing's going anywhere, right?
Right.
And then I have this weird like gap down here, so I'm just gonna add something, maybe some PRS just to finish it off and
just to give it a little lift.
Just have a little less of a hole there because I'm kind of picky.
Well, it's back to your point about, are you able to slide that into the tape?
Yep.
Oh, great. Just because you're seeing, you want every side to look finished.
Yeah. So then
that's all you needed. Just
that's all you needed.
Yeah.
That hole's filled. So now I'm just like looking at it from all the angles, making sure that stuff that I want to poke out is actually poking out. So I'm gonna pull that up a bit.
Yes, because that's a beautiful focal flower.
So this is it. This is a bouquet.
That's gorgeous.
And this is what I would make for a client, except I would probably take my time a little more, be a little more scrupulous. But I didn't use these beautiful tulips, but I think they're just a little too much for today. They're beautiful. But
and it's a perfect complement to the blue purple, but I think what you have is so pretty to have an analogous palette.
They're good. So I'm just going to trim these up and make it a little easier to hold.
The tulips can live on your kitchen table.
Or yours.
Unless your cat wants to.
I think my cat might. Oop, I just got a stem in my bra. That's great. So I'm going to set this down and add my ribbon, which is this silk ribbon. We have an amazing company here in Seattle that dyes these by hand.
What's the name of the company?
It's called, oh my god, what's it called? Of the Earth.
Oh, wow.
And they're just on Aurora, like they're really close to my house. So I just
no
order
idea.
from them and they use these like beautiful dyes and yeah, it's perfect. This is a very long ribbon, which I didn't know when I pulled it, so forgive me. But
it kind of goes with the, or plays off of that mauve rose.
Just gonna clear this up for a sec. Oh, we're gonna have so much nigella seed to put in the garden. That's one thing I love about dried flowers is that you get so much seed if you want it.
Such a good point. Just shake it.
Just shake it, and then you can grow the same thing. So I'm just... This is where if you were like, there's a front, there's a back, you would want to pick where your knot goes. But I don't super care.
At this point, it's
So I'm just wrapping it around.
yeah, I mean, both sides are so pretty. It's like you can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's the goal. I mean, that's always my goal is you can't go wrong because normally I would have an assistant just hold this and I wouldn't set all this delicate dried stuff down, but for today, it's okay.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to tie a little square knot. Right over left, left over right. And then...
Thank you for this. It's so inspiring to just see how you
of course.
Are working with what one would say a limited palette, but...
And then I like sometimes to do a little loop-de-loop here just to be fancy. And then I'll probably cut it like here so that...
Oh, that's gorgeous.
You know, yeah.
We'll go outside and photograph it.
Oh yeah, fun.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the morning of inspiration.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thanks so much for joining us today. As we discussed, next week on Thursday, January 12th, Carolyn's new course, Sustainable Wedding Design, goes live, and you can find the details at her website, carolynkulb.com. I'll also share the link in our show notes when this posts to Seattle, to slowflowerspodcast.com next week. Sorry. The 90-minute comprehensive training will teach you how to create impeccable, long-lasting wedding designs using foam-free and sustainable floristry methods. As an introductory rate, the course is $97 and includes a 30-minute live Q&A session at the end of the training and the opportunity to submit questions in advance if you can't attend the live session. I hope you check it out. And now, thank you to our sponsors. This show is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 850 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. And thank you to our lead sponsor, returning for 2023, Farm Girl Flowers. Farm Girl Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $10 million of U.S.-grown fresh and seasonal flowers and foliage annually. Discover more at farmgrowflowers.com. And thank you to Longfield Gardens, which provides home gardeners with high-quality flower bulbs and perennials. Their online store offers plants for every region and every season, from tulips and daffodils to dahlias, caladiums, and amaryllis. Check out the full catalog at Longfield Gardens. That's longfield-gardens.com. Thank you to Johnny's Selected Seeds, an employee-owned company that provides our industry with the best flower, herb, and vegetable seeds, supplied to farms large and small, and even to backyard cutting gardens like mine. Find the full catalog of flower seeds and bulbs at johnnysseeds.com. And thank you to Mayesh Wholesale Florist. Family-owned since 1978, Mayesh is the premier wedding and event supplier in the U.S., and we're thrilled to partner with Mayesh to promote local and domestic flowers, which they source from farms large and small around the U.S. Learn more at mayesh.com. The Slow Flowers Show is a member-supported endeavor, and I value our loyal members and supporters. If you're new to our weekly show and our long-running podcast, check out all of the resources at slowflowersociety.com. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of the Slow Flowers Show and the Slow Flowers podcast. Next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one stem, one vase at a time. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. Thanks so much for joining us today, and I'll see you next week.